Recently, I was alerted to a TED Talk by Judd entitled, "How Online Abuse of Women Has Spiraled Out of Control." The person who alerted me to the talk thought I might be interested because I'm a longtime game developer who has made several videos dealing with the topic of alleged sexism and misogyny in video games. In her speech, Ms. Judd points to video games as contributing to the problem of the online abuse of women. Now, before watching the video, I thought that maybe video games played a prominent role in what she had to say. But as it turns out, she really just makes a couple offhand comments in support of her larger topic. What she says is harsh, but within the larger context, what she says about video games barely qualifies as a footnote. But as I listened carefully to Ms. Judd's talk, I realized that it exemplifies something that I think impacts all of us in today's digital age of information. And that is both the lure and the danger of creating our own personalized echo chambers. I'll dive into that topic in a moment, but first let's get the video game thing out of the way. Here's what Ashley had to say.
And more love for my friends in tech. Profiteering off misogyny in video games must end. I'm so tired of hearing you talk to me at cocktail parties, like you did a couple weeks ago in Aspen, about how deplorable #Gamergate was when you're still making billions of dollars off games that maim and dump women for sport. Basta, as the Italians would say. Enough.
Of course, Ashley's assertion that video games are making billions off the maiming and dumping of women for sport is ridiculous. There are, at least to my knowledge, exactly 0 titles that fit Ashley's description. There simply aren't any games in existence that have the maiming and dumping of women for sport as an objective or even as a key selling point. Not a single one. Now, to be fair, there are many games in which digital representations of both women and men can be harmed in their role as avatars, combatants, enemies, or sometimes even as innocent bystanders. But even there, if you took any game at random, the likelihood that the bad guys you'd have to fight are male is at least 100 to 1, if not higher. Men and male characters are overwhelmingly the targets of virtual violence in video games, not women. So clearly, Ms. Judd doesn't know what she's talking about here. She offers no facts, no citations, and doesn't even call out any game titles to provide support for her allegation. As gamers, we are left wondering, what in the world is she talking about? As far as we can tell, this is simply a statement presented as truth, but made in total ignorance. But did you notice how the audience reacted to her condemnation of video games? Even though there aren't any games that fit her depiction, they uncritically accept and even cheer her statement as though it were somehow a brave and long overdue thing to say. They want to believe she has a point here, and for them, that belief is enough.
Enough.
Which brings us to the concept of the echo chamber. Today, we live in an age of on-demand information. It is easier than it has been at any other time in human history to find out about any topic you desire and then communicate and share that information with others. My intuition says that, in a world of such global access, we should be seeing people come together as they interact, exchange thoughts, and cross-pollinate ideas. It feels like we should see convergence as different viewpoints mingle and intermix. And yet recently, I've noticed that the exact opposite appears to be happening. It seems like people are becoming more and more entrenched in their respective worldviews, be that religious, political, social, or whatever. I especially noticed it in the last US presidential election. It seemed to me that the country was more divided than ever before. But I wasn't sure if that was really the case or if it was just something I felt. So I went looking. And much to my delight, I discovered that Pew Research has done a study on this very topic. Here it is. As you can see from this animated chart, the differences between those who self-identify as either Democrat or Republican has polarized over the past 20 years. The responses to key ideological questions have become more extreme, and the median viewpoints have diverged. This polarization is even more pronounced when we examine it for those who consider themselves to be politically active. But the differences go beyond ideology. The degree of antipathy towards the opposing viewpoint has also increased, as you can see in this chart. Here you can see that both parties, Democrat and Republican, have become more intolerant of the opposing party. In each case, the share with a highly negative view of the opposing party has more than doubled since 1994. Most of these intense partisans believe the opposing party's policies are so misguided that they threaten the nation's well-being. By 2014, 27% of Democrats see the Republican Party in this way, while 36% of Republicans have an equivalently unfavorable view of the Democrats. Oh, but it gets worse. When we look at just the last 2 years leading up to the election, we see the numbers getting even higher. By 2016, 45% of Republicans and 41% of Democrats see the opposing party as a threat to the nation's well-being. When charted over the past 22 years, you can see this rising tide of antipathy for both parties. Now, the Pew Research Center goes on to analyze a lot of individual issues, and there are a lot of interesting details to sort through. But I didn't see anywhere that they made an attempt as to explain why this is happening. My own personal hypothesis here is one born from experience. I've noticed that an unexpected outgrowth of the age of information is that it has become easier for all of us to self-select what information to which we will expose ourselves. We seem to be getting better and better at creating our own echo chambers. Consider, we no longer have many central news channels that attempt to give us unbiased information. Instead, now we have channels that are, in many cases, unabashedly partisan. We can pick and choose both the news and the spin on it that we want. On sites like YouTube, we can subscribe to only those channels which feed us information that confirms our biases. Even on social media sites like Facebook and Twitter, we can hide or block friends or family that might disagree with us. By doing things like this, we can create for ourselves a digital environment that reflects back to us only the things that we want to hear and see. Which brings us back to Ashley Judd's TED Talk. To me, her speech provides us a cautionary tale of the echo chamber in action. Here's how it works. First, it is clear to me that Ashley has a pretty positive opinion of herself. I imagine that opinion looks something like, I am a good person and hence I deserve kindness and respect. This opinion is innocuous in itself, maybe even healthy. We probably all feel this same way. But where the problem starts is when our feelings start to become more important to us than are the facts. Our desires to maintain a high self-opinion becomes the primary filter we use to select the information to which we will expose ourselves. When the information is positive and feels good and supports our worldview, we accept it in. But when it is negative or critical, we seek to filter it out or to explain it away. This means that any criticism or negativity that we hear must be recast as not really being about us or our worldviews, but rather it must represent a flaw in the person or the source making the negative or critical statement. This is how an echo chamber starts. So, for example, in Ashley's case, if someone were to say to her, "You're an idiot and you make bad movies," such a statement is in conflict with her central tenet that she deserves kindness and respect. And yet, here is someone saying something that is insulting to her. This creates cognitive dissonance. The way she resolves that dissonance is to say that the mean and hurtful thing isn't really about her personally. Rather, it's a reflection of something intrinsically wrong in the speaker. And so she looks for a way to make the personal insult about anything else other than about her. Now, if the person giving the insult has in some way sexualized her as part of that insult, he or she has provided a ready way for Ms. Judd to reinterpret that insult as not being about her personally, but rather as being about all women. In her echo chamber, mean and hurtful sexualized comments directed at her are mean and hurtful sexualized comments directed against all women everywhere. Those personal comments are taken as proof of global misogyny.
Twisted is such a bad movie, I don't even want to rape it. Whatever you do, don't tell Ashley Judd she'll die alone with a dried out vagina. Online misogyny is a global gender rights tragedy, and it is imperative that it ends.
Eventually, the echo chamber becomes so perfect in its construction and so adept at redirecting personal insults that any criticism hurled Ashley's way is reinterpreted to be an instance of global misogyny. Even though the attacks are meant to be personal, Ms. Judd learns to see them as being abstracted against all women. In order to insulate herself from the hurt feelings such pointed attacks might bring, she takes up the armor and becomes a feminist crusader.
Since I joined Twitter in 2011, misogyny and misogynists have amply demonstrated they will dog my every step. My spirituality, my faith, being a hillbilly, I can say that, you can't, all of it is fair game. Because even I, an avowed, self-declared feminist who worships at the altar of Gloria, internalize the patriarchy.
Through this process, her high self-opinion gets reinforced and becomes almost like religious dogma. She goes beyond seeing herself as just a good person. Now, everything she does, as well as all of the ideas she holds, are also good. This tactic allows her to view anything that she does as being well justified and righteous, whereas any blowback she gets for actions can be recast as further evidence of hostility towards all women everywhere.
This one guy was musing to I don't know who that maybe I was the definition of a cunt. I was married to a Scot for 14 years, so I said, cunt means many different things in different countries. But I'm pretty sure you epitomize the global standard of a dick. I am a Kentucky basketball fan, so on a fine March day last year, I was doing one of the things I do best. I was cheering for my Wildcats. The daffodils were blooming, but the referees were not blowing the whistle when I was telling them to. Funny, they're very friendly to me before the opening tip, but they really ignore me during the game. 3 of my players were bleeding, so I did the next best thing. I tweeted. On that particular day, for some reason, that particular tweet after the basketball game triggered something called a cyber mob. This vitriolic, global outpouring of the most heinous hate speech, death threats, rape threats. And don't you know, when I was sitting at home alone in my nightgown, I got a phone call, and it was my beloved former husband, and he said on a voicemail, "Loved one, what is happening to you is not okay."
I think it's worthwhile to note that Ashley is a celebrity who has over 300,000 followers on Twitter. That's quite a few. And I can't help but wonder what she expected to happen when she sent out her tweet disparaging a rival sports team. In any case, Ms. Judd was so upset by some of the comments she received in response to her basketball tweet that she decided to write and self-publish an op-ed article.
So I wrote this feminist op-ed. It is entitled, "Forget Your Team. It is your online gender violence toward girls and women that can kiss my righteous ass."
Here's a bit of that article from her website. In it, she includes examples of what she calls the standard bashing anyone experiences when objecting to and taking action against misogyny. Take a look. Now, to me, her examples seem pretty mild. And again, they also seem like they are personal criticisms rather than evidence of a global online misogyny aimed at all women. But Ms. Judd saw them differently. She saw these comments as hate speech and began researching what legal action she might be able to take against the perpetrators. Also in this same Kiss My Ass article, Ms. Judd went on to recount that mean tweets such as these were especially hurtful to her because she is a survivor of sexual assault, rape, and incest. And then beyond that, She revealed that some recent news stories also triggered her to recall a new instance of something she called oral rape back when she was 15. It's unclear exactly what she means by oral rape. Even so, Ms. Judd continues in her TED Talk to describe how a small subset of people reacted to her newly released stories of sexual assault.
I started to write about sharing the fact that I'm a survivor of all forms of sexual abuse, including 3 rapes, and the hate speech I get in response to that. These are just some of the comments posted to news outlets. Being told I'm a snitch is really fun. Thank you, Jesus. May your grace and mercy shine.
Now, I don't know about you, but I wasn't able to read very many of the comments she flashes up on screen before they were gone. So I went back and froze the images, and again, to me it appears that at least some of what she takes to be evidence of global misogyny seem more like personal criticisms. Of course, sexual assault is an awful crime, and it deserves to be treated seriously. So the people who are treating Ashley's experience flippantly are indeed behaving rudely. But note that most of these people don't seem to be condoning sexual assault in any way. Instead, they seem to be expressing some misgivings about the content and peculiar timing of Miss Judd's decision to publicize these alleged events. Now, I should be clear that not everything that Ms. Judd says in her TED Talk appears to be colored by her consistent conflation of some of the uglier negativity she receives as a high-profile celebrity with the abuse of women worldwide. There are some points she makes and some statistics she draws from that appear to be worthwhile. For me, the problem is that so much of what she says appears to come from a zealous desire to reaffirm her personal viewpoints rather than provide genuine, fact-based insights. It casts serious suspicion as to the validity of everything else she says. For example, we know for certain that her representation of the video games industry as making billions on the maiming and dumping of women as being flat out wrong. So I can't help but wonder if at least some of the other things she says might also be similarly skewed. In short, her echo chamber is so overwhelming that it is hard to distinguish the signal from her noise. I want to end this video with one last clip from Ashley's TED Talk. To me, the way she chose to finish things serves as an excellent metaphor. As you observe her final words and, especially, the interaction with her audience, think back to that Pew Research I referenced earlier, and then ask yourself what your own newsfeed, YouTube channels, or social media interactions look like.
So I'm going to say awesome stuff about myself. I would like for you to reflect it back to me. It might sound something like this. I am a powerful and strong woman, and you would say, yes, you are. Yes, you are. My mama loves me. Yes, she does. I did a great job with my talk. Yes, you did. I have a right to be here. Yes, you do. I'm really cute. God does good work. Yes, he does. And I love you. Thank you so much for letting me be of service.